This article that I brought up is actually from only a couple of days ago, where they talk about bringing back the woolly mammoth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a very fascinating thought that we could potentially bring back animals that are fully extinct. We've got some relatives. Right? The woolly mammoth is kind of related to other elephant species, but to be able to bring back the hairy
woolly mammoth,
what's the Sesame Street
Snuffleupagus.
we can bring him back. I think that's a pretty cool idea. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, see there. Why do you think it's a terrible idea?
Well, I could probably add a lot more reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
If I had the understanding of why they think it's a good idea to bring it back. But I will just a couple things right off the bat is I have issue with bringing things back, and I'm not even going to go with the way of Bible or God or anything like that, but I feel that we are part of nature. I know that we might be reason for some things to have gone extinct, maybe single-handedly, in fact, maybe the rhino might be one of them, or I don't know if
there are a lot of them,
but I just feel if nature found that they were found, I don't know how to say it because nature may not be, a being. I'm not
conscious,
but there you go.
Yeah.
But I will say that if they got if they got taken away naturally, we are part of it, believe it or not, naturally on this planet, that maybe they should be that way for a reason. And the woolly mammoth presents other issues too.
Well, let me talk about that very point, because please. I'm not surprised that you'd be a little not
jumping on board.
Yeah, you wouldn't jump on board here, but you make an argument that we are part of nature, and that's kind of my argument that I think some people miss out, which is there are tons of other species that come in and they extinct other species. Right. They come in, they take over their environment.
That's why we get cautious about what kind of animals cross oceans.
That's why we have to pay a dang boat fee for an invasive species permit from the government.
Yeah, that's why.
So that that's another topic. But their argument is, well, we don't want to introduce some invasive species into the stream, and then that's going to kill off all the natural, native species. Well, but that's what's been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We've had mass extinctions because things change. And we just happen to be part of a species that is causing some extinction. You were talking about, we've caused some things, even the white rhino you had mentioned. Absolutely. We have got to the point where even some hunting has gone to the point where we've killed off an entire species.
Can I shoot off of that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just like in naturally speaking, we try to help it out, but wolves, they can shoot themselves in the foot, if you will, they breed a lot and they overhunt their areas, and then they overrun the area. Now they don't have the food. Mm-hmm. They have to travel, have issues. So guess what? They hire hunters to come thin out their herds, but they can be a product of their own failures too, just like we.
Just like we were talking about earlier, where other species knock out other species. Yeah. When you get these apex predators, it gets rid of a lot of these other populations.
The rat tried to exterminate us with the Black Plague, or the flea, my bad.
Uh-huh.
The rat got a bad rap on that one. It was the flea.
But you think about we try and save some of these species because we want to keep them around for whatever reason, I don't know. In some cases, some species, they tend to maintain a healthy population. Every population has ebbs and flows. Who are we to maintain all of those ebbs and flows? Because for hundreds of thousands of years of the past, these different species, they move into an area, they migrate. The climate does change. It cools. It gets warmer, and the environment changes. And these things move to different places, and there's always an impact. For us, I think it's cool technology, but do we need to bring back every species that's ever existed?
Just feel that we shouldn't even bring back any and work more on preventing it from happening. But even preventing it from happening, it could interfere with a natural maybe thing. Well, but who's to say it is? I mean, because we are the natural thing.
Well, we live in part of a natural world. We have been domesticating animals for a long time. Think about the number of different types of dogs. You have a bulldog.
Thousands.
If you look at a bulldog, does it look anything like a wolf?
Nope. Sure doesn't.
It sure doesn't.
Looks like a ham with
with 4 legs.
Yep.
But think about that. Just in the way that we've bred dogs through the years to make sure that they have certain characteristics. If you imagine your dog being set free out in the woods someplace, how long do you think that dog would survive? And let's just say
dog.
Maybe not.
No, poor thing. I'm gonna cry because he wouldn't make it a day.
Yeah.
But I think I know what you're saying is they adapt and but how about this? Mm-hmm. There's a thing that I could understand with. I mean, I don't know how it worked out because if everything stemmed from a wolf, then
not everything did. But
not everything. But I'm talking about dogs. Yeah. But anyways, you eventually had some to mix, but I mean, I am understanding with going, your last dog, they didn't like genetically break it down and they bred it that way.
Yeah, he was a golden doodle.
Right. And so they literally naturally did it that way. They didn't have to clone one genetically from a lab to do it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think in some cases, though, some dogs, because you can't get them to breed with each other, then they have to do some artificial insemination.
But that's still them giving birth. But I'm talking about not like a cloning thing. You know what I mean?
They still give birth to that.
But what do you mean?
When they do cloning.
Okay, but that's not. But that's not. But that's not what. Right. But that's not what I'm talking about. They're like not lab created. Okay, they're.
Well, that'd be hard to define, though, right?
No. Example is, if I had a golden retriever and you had a poodle, and I said, "Hey, let's meet down here and let them have at it," not in a lab, okay? That's more natural. I'm not trying to be like too specific.
Well, I see your point.
But my point is nobody's sitting there with a beaker and just taking their DNA and breaking down DNA and rebuilding DNA and putting it back together in a petri dish to make a clone of something else.
You're talking about knocking boots.
Because I also say somewhat natural is to take their sperm and their egg and put it together. That's not the same. That's not like it's screwing with the genetics.
It's not. Yeah, that's just totally
that's artificial insemination. That's not messing genetics.
Yeah, it's like a stage going towards something that's really not very natural. Because you could still, you could take the sperm of a bull and put it in a turkey baster and give it to the sow, right?
Right. But
and that's sort of, that's artificial insemination, but it's not completely unnatural because there's still some natural things happening.
But that's still not what I'm talking about. There's I don't know if you know this, but there's other levels that they.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is at what level becomes like super unnatural?
Well, when you're literally talking their genetics and splicing genes, if you are letting them mount or literally a lot of horses, you have to like whack them off. You're asking. You're not picking up what I'm putting down, so I have to be blunt, pop-up book style. But you have to collect the semen, and you have to, either, you have to introduce it to the eggs,
deliver the goods.
Okay, so all that is doing is that you're physically putting the two things together. Yeah. You're not splicing genes, you're not rebuilding, you're not creating something from nothing, if you will.
Yeah, I got your point.
But in order to, but my point is in order to bring back anything, you can't do that.
Well, there's 3 different methods that I found about this de-extinction. I'll talk a little bit about them. There's 3 of them. One is called backbreeding, which is kind of like what we're talking about right now, which is what we've done with domesticated dogs, and we've done this with certain zoo animals that don't obviously get along in the same environment, but it's a boy and a girl, and we want to create new ones.
I've seen ligers.
And there you go. You've seen ligers. So backbreeding is one of the methods that they talk about bringing to it doesn't really fully bring back the genetic identical of what is extinct, but they're breeding in a way to get closer to what that animal either like appeared as or functioned as. Okay. And that's like this thing, Ethan, you were talking about. What's that? The quagga?
Yeah, the quagga.
Yeah. That's kind of what they're trying to do with the quagga, where they're taking the zebra and looking at very specific things that the genes have expressed. And the next one that they were talking about was cloning, which Dolly the sheep was a result of cloning. Maybe you can look for that picture, Ethan.
Dolly?
Yeah, because it looks so different than all the other ones.
Dolly.
You could probably just pull up any sheep and that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But cloning in this sort of way is more like artificial insemination, and you're taking cells from basically, one animal and artificially inseminating into another animal. But there's some work that has to be done in the laboratory before you can artificially inseminate. And this is kind of that level that you were talking about earlier, which is that at what point does it become kind of unnatural, where it really couldn't happen in the natural world. And what you get is a genetic identical, and they compared it to twins, because there are identical twins that have the same genes, and that's kind of what they're doing with cloning. And Dolly was one of the first successful clones that was able to survive for a long period of time. CRISPR, you ever heard of that?
Nope.
Yeah, it's very fascinating because they have this ability, and I believe it's by using a virus, to splice open DNA, and you can identify certain parts of the DNA and replace that. So, for instance, we were talking about dogs and horses and others where you're breeding them when they express a certain gene, a certain, like, the sheep with long wool, right, or the racing horse that's really fast or strong, or maybe it's, who knows what it might be, the hair or whatever on a dog. They can identify that. They have to sequence the genome of that particular animal so that they can identify all the different genes and what those genes would normally express. Right. And it's very like experimental type stuff. And they're trying to find ways of curing diseases and other things that humans have by using this CRISPR technology, by inserting this DNA and hoping that the body will respond and get rid of whatever issue that they might have, a cancer or whatever. The technology is fascinating, but it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. You agree?
I agree with you.
Yeah. It's really scary.
Because these things are, again, like you said, we're talking about bringing animals back to life. Mm-hmm. And my point is they're taking that technology and they're putting people on bringing back animals that aren't here at all. And my point is all right, sounds like there's some good stuff. Let's just focus on that.
Yeah,
that's my point is if they could do good stuff on it, that's great. But we're talking about bringing back animals, and why? What is a benefit of a mammoth that's going to? I mean, trust me. As I don't know. I want to say a young boy, but that's kind of who I am still. But as me, dude, that would be sweet to see. Are you kidding me? That would be I happen to love elephants, and that would be like the ultimate, right? But
what are the consequences?
Right. And I just feel like that's just not worth it. And even if it isn't anything, because here's this with the old woolly pachyderm is
the snuffleupagus.
Yeah, with old snuffs is that we already have, and I'm going to use other people's issues. We have global warming out there that everybody's concerned about. And, some people say that we have too much livestock as it is. Bringing back more animals on this planet sounds like, according to, quote, their science, you would think would bring a huge negative effect. Bringing something back with it's so bad. How to clean that up? With something so huge that would probably release a lot of gases. You would think that would be a horrible idea. It's going to have to eat stuff out there. Now, what is it going to do to the animals that live in without it? And is it going to even be able to survive? Because there isn't anything out there for it to eat that it's used to. And it's just like, again, going on with all the stuff, especially the woolly mammoth, I think is the most ridiculous idea. Now, if it had something to do, which I probably wouldn't even eat it, because God knows they already mess with a lot of our food, or, with hormones being pumped in our meats and stuff. True, or pesticides, enough
antibiotics.
Yeah. But, they're not even trying to make it. They're not saying if they really want to get me, they go, Dave, this sucker could have like a 360-pound brisket, man. I'd be like, okay, well, now there's a plus that we can do this. But, it's not like they're going to be bringing it back because it could be a food source, or that we even need a food source, because America wastes, 40 or 60% of its food.
They did it with the buffalo.
So, it's I don't understand.
Yeah, what would be the point of it?
I mean, are you going to get one and then throw it in a zoo? That's the only thing I could think of to bring these back to the article, to be able to see them.
The article that I saw, there's a team from Japan that successfully, they found this this mammoth. It's a baby mammoth.
Just running around?
Oh. No, tucked away in the ice, frozen. And it's a great specimen. It's on display in one of their museums, but they were able to take some cells from it and basically using, I think it was CRISPR, I think it was a mouse. I think it was a mouse that they basically tried to revive and repair the DNA. So they took some cells from a mouse and inserted
That's
the
what
mammoth.
Their biggest fear is mice.
That's true. They are.
Gosh, that's evil.
Isn't that funny? But what they were able to do is see that the DNA activated. And so they were really excited because the potential then shows that DNA could be part of a cell that replicates, and then what's the next step? But
that means they've already been doing it, right?
But
come on.
But what they found is
I've seen those movies.
But what they found is that the DNA was still damaged enough that even the mouse cell couldn't really fill in those gaps and fix the DNA well enough. But it's just, it's in science, it's like one more step closer to understanding how to do something, or reasons for or not to do something a certain way.
So, and I thought you touched on they could kind of sort of, maybe it's through this CRISPR, but determine what these things do. So can they determine okay, we can make a snuffleupagus, but it's not going to have one of those noses, man. Sorry. It's going to end up with a mouse nose. but can they determine oh no, this is a major part of this thing. It's going to have no feet.
Yeah.
It's so big it's going to break through the ice and just sink.
So there's one of the things about it is
no hair or something.
They have to sequence the genome of that animal in order to know what genes are missing.
But they can find out.
Exactly. And so they can figure out, what genes do which thing, so they can identify that in that sequencing process.
Oh, wait, man. Just throwing it out there, maybe silly, but regardless, to make my point, if you will. So okay, man, we have it all together, but man, this is not going to be a woolly mammoth. It's just going to be hairless mammoth, no hair.
Yeah.
So they go, okay, well, what's the hairiest I don't know. I know a bear's got to be, let's just say, all right, well, we have a bear with a big old pelt on it, or elk or something. Let's mix that in with it, and see, if that could replace the hair issue, because you can't have a bald mammoth. That wouldn't look right.
Well, I don't know enough about DNA and how genes would interact, because there's so many genes in DNA, and some of them are not active and are not expressed when the animal is alive. And so, they don't always know which genes are going to be expressed in an animal that they try and bring back. One of the things that they're trying to do is they want to take the mammoth DNA and basically combine it with the Asian elephant. So they've sequenced the DNA of both of those animals, but there's 1.4 million genes that are different. So they have to figure out which ones, and that's a lot of genes to figure out.
That's not even
Yeah, and
a few could be huge.
And these are of, these are like cousins or something. So they're of, a similar species, right?
Right. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's some work.
It's some work. But
I don't know what's worse, somebody putting together the fiber optic cable like this big, matching them all up, or that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take either one of those.
It's a very fascinating topic to me. There's so many details that I don't understand.
I will tell you,
but
it does fascinate me too. And gosh, I probably couldn't lie and say if they did make one, that I wouldn't want to go see it.
Yeah. We are running out of time.
Well,
shall we wrap it up?
I think we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do that.
Let's go and talk about some dodos.
It's a fascinating story.
It is. I'm old fashioned, so I always have to hold on to what we have left, I guess, and not mess with it.
Yeah.
But
well, thanks again for listening. Tell a friend, tell them about the show. Let them know we're doing the podcast. We'd love to grow the audience. You can find us online at
nevertooserious.com.
You can find some merch on there. Click on the link and find some branded stuff. We would appreciate that as well. You can send us some topic ideas at mailbag
at nevertooserious.com.
Yep. And of course, our socials. The NTS Podcast. You can find us Twitter or Gettr. Until we see you next time, take care.
And be safe.